Welcome back to the Childhood Cancer Perspective. Thank you all for sticking with me. And one of the coolest things that I've been able to do with this podcast is being able to interview entire family dynamics like I'm doing today, as well as organizations and medical professionals to get their unique perspectives on this pediatric cancer world. The latest thing that I have been doing is trying to get more dads involved in what's going on, because I think there might be different types of factors that will lead us to believe where the dad's role is in all of this. And a lot of times it feels like we're behind the scenes. So I want to get other people's perspectives just to see if I'm completely off base in my thinking, or maybe I'm right on track or somewhere in the middle there. So today, my guest is Bryan, who is the father to Sarah, who you've heard me interview, as well as you've also heard me interview Amy, which is Sarah's mom. So today, Bryan, thank you so much for being with me, and welcome to the show.
Glad to be here, Curtis.
So I will just ask you just to kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll kind of get into it and talk about this in this crazy world that we call pediatric cancer.
Nobody really expects the whole cancer thing, and I didn't expect it either. Of course, Amy and I got married many years ago, in 2006, and we had Payson and Drew first, and actually Drew and Payson first, and then we had Born in 2012. No, I'm sorry, 2014. It's early. I'm still on my first cup of coffee. So she was born in 2014. Childhood things happen. And then in 2017, we started noticing some stuff that changed. And, for those of you that don't know, I've been in law enforcement almost 23 years. That's my primary thing. I have like zero medical background other than, trying to stop red stuff from coming out of your body. That's the extent of my knowledge, basic life-saving stuff, until the people with the flashy lights on the big boxes that cost, $10,000 a trip, show up, and then they can deal with it. So anyway, fast forward, in 2017, when Eli was born, we started noticing some stuff starting to change, just noticing some general health issues starting to come up. And of course, I couldn't figure out what was going on. And of course, I would just go to work, come home, deal with, the day-to-day stuff. And of course, I kept seeing, asking questions. Well, why is she not feeling good? What's happening? And of course, you think the C word, and you're just like, but no, there's no way. And we went through the process of going to more and more appointments, and we got a referral to oncology just to get her checked out. And they were like, we're just going to keep an eye on her, which keyword I have found out, if oncology says we're going to keep an eye on her, something's up, period. And I don't know what y'all's experience with JC was. I don't know if it was, like an immediate, oh yeah, this is what's going on with her. So we followed up, and they were like, well, we're just going to keep checking her. We did notice that right after she was born, about 4 months after she was born, we noticed that she had a growth on her eye, and they looked at it and they were like, that's nothing. It's just a fatty cyst. Don't worry about it. So we didn't. Well, now fast forward to 2017, we're going through all of that stuff, and we knew that something was up. Fast forward to 2020 and the whole debacle with Corona, and going through all of that. And fast forward to the end of 2020, that's when everything just really started spiraling. And specifically in November of 2020, she got real sick. And rather, at that point, she had been taking her back more frequently to the oncologist, and they were starting to look at several things. Then when she got sick in November, we noticed that, came home from work, and was like, she's not right. There's something just not right. And then all of a sudden her fever just spiked. We're talking like 102. And Amy's like, I think I need to get her to the hospital. So we said, okay, well, then take her. So rather than going here locally, because we knew that they didn't have the capability to deal with her, she drove to Texas Children's in Houston, and by the time she got there, she was unresponsive. Um, I stayed home with the other three kids, and that was I was like, okay, yeah, you want to be there, but I obviously we have three other children, one of which is still really little. I mean, he was three at that point, so um, an adult had to stay here, so I did. So I stayed here and I went to bed. Well, fast forward, I get a call at midnight, and Amy is like in tears, and she's like, Bryan, they're you need to talk to her because they don't think she's going to make it. And that was like, okay. So I'm sitting there like, stuck 2 hours away from my wife and daughter and not able to do crap. And so I'm just like, oh, okay, hey, yeah, it's okay. Hey, baby. And, how are you? And she's like talking. She's like, Daddy. And I said, it's okay, Sarah. You're going to get better. And just trying to whisper things and knowing that the doctors have told Amy, yeah, you need to at least let your husband talk to her because we don't think she's going to make it. And we still don't know the entire, what the whole thought process was going on, but she was in full on shock. So the doctor, one of the ER docs, and normally I guess the protocols are that you hit the if you have kids that are coding, you hit them with like epinephrine and adrenaline and all of that stuff, which had they done that, she wouldn't be with us today. We don't know why the doctor did it, but he hit her with cortisol, and which is exactly what needed to happen. So two things happened from that deal. One, we got a confirmed lymphoma diagnosis, and two, just because of all the blood work that they had to do, and two, we found out about her adrenal insufficiency because that ER doc hit her with the cortisol. So I mean, she rebounded and she came out of it, but she was in sepsis from an infection. So she ended up spending like 14 days in the hospital that trip. So now, from my perspective, and like I said, I've told and Amy was like, you can talk about some of the medical stuff, but they're not going to expect that from you, and so please don't expect me to explain any of the medical stuff because I don't understand. I mean, I'm a dumb cop. So with all of that, I have a basic understanding of what was going on, and that's the basic timeline that I understand. Now, post that, what has happened? And I think you made the comment about, you don't know what, you have one parent that's really involved in the treatment aspect, and then you have the other parent that's like the background. Yeah, I'm the background. So you are 100% correct. I get up every morning and I go to work so that my kids have food and so that they have insurance and so that they can be supported. You don't think about some of the things when Sarah got sick and in 2020, um, and actually even before that, I said, hey, we really don't, and even before we had the confirmed diagnosis, it's like, we suspect that it's cancer, but we're going through all the process. And I said, and I had to tell my bosses, I said, hey, just FYI, when it comes down, understand that I'm really trying to not take time off, but I'm going to be missing a lot. Just, one day here, one day there, and it's going to be odd. And if it's something where I have to take off so that I can be here to watch my other kids to make sure that they don't burn the house down, then that's what I have to do. And they were very supportive of that. And I think that's the number one key that's the one thing that I could say is that if you are in this situation, make sure that your employer, be communicative with them. Yeah, that's the word. can, communicate with them and let them know what's going on and be honest and upfront. So that way it doesn't look like you're just missing for, you want to go have a fish date, go fishing out on the lake, or, you know, go out to the beach, or whatever. No, you're doing things for your family, and be upfront with them. And so my employer has been fantastic from the moment that we realized that there was something going on with her. I was open with them and I said, hey, this is what's happening. This is what we're doing. I don't know the entire circumstances, but know that if I'm taking off for my family, it's for this reason. So, but in the meantime, so since that's happened, and we have had the diagnosis, and she has gone through everything, it has been Amy that has been primarily dealing with it, mostly because of her medical knowledge and medical background. But for me, you carry the weight of the day-to-day things on your shoulders. Well, do we have tires on the car? Well, okay, well, I haven't even seen the car because I don't drive it. Either I drive my vehicle to and from work, and I don't even really pay attention. If I use their car, it's going to be on the weekends, and I don't really even pay attention to it. So knowing that, hey, we may end up having to put tires on the car. Well, we're going to need a, you know, we're going to need an oil change, or whatever. Again, it comes back to, okay, well, now I need to go out and pick up some shifts and try to pick up extra duties so that I can pay for this extra stuff that we don't normally have to pay for. So I work a lot, and I'm like never home, but I know it's a season, and hopefully we'll get through it and do something else.
I think that, knowing you guys personally, yes, you do work a lot. And it can be excessive when you really think about it. If you really kind of break everything down, that you're working to kind of keep the family afloat. And I think a lot of fathers are in that position. I think we're in the position where we have to carry the weight of the world, and that's why we're in the background. When JC was diagnosed in 2020, and at that point, I had a good job with good insurance, and so when I did the same thing, I was very open and honest, and I walked into my boss's office and I said, here's the deal. This is what's going on. I have no idea when I'm going to be off or when I'm going to need it, but I'm not going to be here, and you're just going to have to deal with it or fire me. And that's how I handled it. And I worked enough to keep things going, and I was there when I could, there when I didn't want to be. And it's a terrible feeling to know that you have to be away so much to ensure essentially the safety and the feasibility of your family to kind of get through every single day. But I think that's also part of that societal feeling that we as the fathers, the husbands, the dads, whatever, we are tasked with carrying that weight and ensuring that that's what's supposed to happen. And we're in the same boat too. My medical knowledge is what I've learned along this whole entire journey, what I've learned from being in these doctors' offices and hearing people speak and things like that. So it's, and you're in a sense, right, I guess, blessed with the fact that your wife, that Amy, does have that medical understanding of things and can really understand what people are talking about and explain it in a way that we can understand. Not everybody is, again, using lucky in this community is really hard to say, but not everybody has that luck, I guess. I don't know what another word to say. Yeah. But I also, I had the same conversation with Trish after JC's stem cell transplant. I had the same conversation on the phone, almost to the T, of calling her on the phone and saying, I don't think I'm bringing her home. I said, I don't think she's going to come out of this, because she was in almost a coma for 10 days. And I said, I don't think I'm bringing her home. I don't know what to do. And that is not only, what COVID did to us as families going through this, but that's unfortunately when not unfortunately that you have other kids, but that's the unfortunate side effect of having a family, is that someone has to be there for your other responsibilities, your other kids, and you can't always be together in this. That is truly a tough thing to deal with. And I know for us, it was extremely difficult to deal with that separation.
Right. I mean, as you look around your house, the lights don't keep themselves on. They, and unfortunately, it typically falls on us. And I think there are some families where it's inverse. where it's the father that is doing the treatments, that is doing the visits, and that's great. And I'm not casting shade on those men, because honestly, to me, I have seen things in my career that would buckle most people, and it's just like, oh, this is just Tuesday for me. But seeing that happen to your own child, I don't know that I could handle that as a father. Does that make it, does that make me less of a person? Absolutely not. Does it? But it knows knowing your limitations is huge, and that's one of the things that I would recommend for anybody is make sure that if you are going through this, one, that you have a support system, and two, I mean, Curtis, you probably know, what is the divorce rate for families with a cancer?
80%.
There you go. And there are times that Amy and I, fight over some of the crap that happens. Things that normally wouldn't bother you. And ultimately, I think a lot of it is like, so much of what we do is what our expectations are is control. We want to have control over every aspect in our life. And how much, even when the treatment was going well for JC, how much control did you have?
You have very little. Very little.
Exactly. You have no control. So, that's frustrating as a parent, and that's because you have control over your child their entire life until this. So now all of a sudden you go from having complete control to zero control. That strains even the most solid relationships, and that's huge. So, so I would really recommend anybody, if you're going through this, understand that your partner is not dealing well, period, and it's just not going well. Even if it seems to be going well, it's not going well. So one of the things that we say is grace is huge. So have grace with your partner, because if they're having to deal with the care of the child, it's tough. You end up with that caregiver fatigue, much like dealing with a parent or grandparent, Curtis.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you, man. I feel like that was personal. No, yeah, I feel like that was personal, but that's okay. It's all right.
Yeah.
No, it is. Listen, you're right on. You're hitting the nail right on the head, because, you really don't understand how big of an effect this has on you until you really sit back and look at it from that 30,000-foot view. And I come from a product of my parents were divorced when I was really young. And so my goal in my entire life was that's never happening to me. I'm never doing that. I'm never going through it. I'm not going to put my kids through it. I'm not going to do it. And so when we got into this, and there was a time not too long ago that I asked, Trish and I did a podcast one night, and I asked her, I said, did you ever think that we weren't going to make it through this? And she said, yes. And she had never told me that, never mentioned to me that, yeah, there were times when we were arguing and fighting, and a lot of that was from absolute exhaustion, beyond, like, if you think you've been tired in your life, I promise you this journey, or shit show as she will call it, will tire you out in ways that you never knew was possible. And at that point, your walls come down, your inhibitions, you are kind of with beer goggles on, you are doing things, and you won't realize that you're saying something that's hurtful, or doing something that's hurtful, or whatever. And it's never, I think a lot of families that break up along this way, it's not because they don't love each other anymore. I think it's because it truly breaks you in a way that you can't explain. And so 20% is a really, really low number. And we become an extreme anomaly. And people will ask, how did you make it through? And the answer is, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I think we found ways to kind of coexist with everything, and understand that each of us are going through it in a different way. We're both struggling. We both have our days where things aren't going well. And you just, again, that grace is a great word, because you have got to have it and you've got to give it.
And I know that I'm like that. I don't do it. I don't give grace. And as one of our favorite sayings is there are days that I just crash out and lose my shit. But it's difficult to maintain that, especially whenever you go to work and you know that there ain't no one at work that's dealing with the exact same thing that you are. And it's like, come on. I mean, so dealing with that and understanding and I think you just said it. You deal with the stress in a different way than what Trish does. I deal with the stress in a different way than what Amy does. And then of course, then there are our individual choices that and individual actions that we all do that cause us to react or act a certain way, and it can spiral out, and it just can affect everything. And I think ultimately where it comes back to is that I know for me, one of the things that I do is whenever I'm getting fed up and I just want to throw the towel in and just say, you know what, screw this, and I'm going to start looking for a 1-bedroom apartment so that I can just be in all of my feels by myself. Then I start looking at stuff like that and understanding who this is about. And is it just her? No, it's him, her, and him. That's ultimately who this is about as well. And understanding that everything else is just there and we can make it work, and trying to figure out how we're going to do things. But yeah, it's not easy, and none of this is easy. If anybody ever says that, oh, well, it's just your kid's sick, you have no clue. You have no clue. And then you start dealing with the whole frustration of, what do you mean there's no new cancer drugs? And then what do you mean there's no new treatment? And then like last night, I had mind blown. One of the primary treatments for childhood cancer was approved before the Game Boy was released. Do you know when the Game Boy was released, Curtis?
Is back way long time ago.
Like 1988.
Yeah, it seems like quite a difference there for everybody to really kind of put that into perspective. What we're jumping all over the place all the time about talking about new treatments and things like that, and people will tell you, well, there's plenty of drugs for cancer treatments. Yeah, there are. There absolutely are. There's hundreds of different drugs for cancer treatment. The difference is how many of those drugs are actually approved for children, approved for use in kids. What you have to understand is that all of these drugs that are being put into kids, and what we need people to really kind of realize and take in that understanding, is that they're being put into kids, the same drug, at a longer stretch. Okay, it's not a diluted version. It is the same thing. Instead of giving it to an adult at 6 hours, they give it to a kid over 12 hours. You're getting the same drug. Okay, so these are not kid-approved drugs. These are not drugs that they tested in kids and said, hey, this will work. No, the same drugs that you're getting for lymphoma, for Hodgkin's lymphoma, for rhabdomyosarcoma, DMG, DIPG, choroid plexus carcinoma, all of these are being utilized through drugs that are not specifically approved for kids. And that's the big issue. And the big thing that we start learning when we come into this world, into this pediatric cancer community, is that you think, okay, cancer treatment must have come light years ahead in the past decades, at least since we've been alive, right? And the truth is, it's been spinning its wheels in the dirt. And who do we really have to blame for that, except for, in my opinion, what we're told? So essentially blaming the media, the people that tell us, okay, well, we're light years ahead, we're getting there, we're making all these discoveries, but not where we need them. And that's what the real issue is. So when you see things like that with like the Game Boy, and you look back at it and people go, wow, well, that doesn't make any sense, right? And you can think about how old I was then. I would have been 7 years old when the Game Boy came out now. So we're talking almost 40 years. And that's since a drug. Okay, that's way it's really it's disheartening, because we sit here and we, as dads, I will say, as fathers, the one job that we are tasked with from God is protecting our kids. That's what we're supposed to do. That's our job. And when this cancer comes along, that's that we feel like we failed, right? Because we couldn't protect them from this.
Right.
And now we're told that all you did to work or to fix it, these are the people we're going to task to fix it, but they don't have the tools they need to fix it either.
Right.
So
Exactly.
we're forced into,
And I think that's the key. That's the key is that, we're, the way that we're built is we're fixers, which is, I mean, if you look at, any relationship programs and stuff, and listen to it, one of the things that they talk about is women start talking about the problem. What is the male's first response? They're going to immediately try to start fixing it. I mean, and does our wife want that? Not necessarily. Not all the time. And they just want to be heard. They want to be listened to. They want to have all of those things validated, but we want to fix it. Unfortunately, it's not like you can take a hammer and fix the cancer. You can't take a screw gun and there's nothing that. So that's where we have to come back and have the faith in our system and in our medical system to treat our kids. And then, but what we can do is, we have big shoulders, and that means that if we have to carry our spouse and give them that strength and support, then maybe that's what we have to do. And so if the only thing that you feel like you can do is to go out and work more to pay for bills and pay for the things that might be needed, and honestly, that's one of the things that I do is if I'm thinking about it and it's like, okay, you know what? I'm working all of these extra hours, but what exactly is that money going to? Well, it's going to provide comfort items and comfort objects for our family so that they can be comfortable while we're dealing with this as a family. And if that's the only thing that gives you peace for doing that, then great, do it. And if that's your justification for continuing to work, I mean, then whatever you got to do. If that's that. And I think that's kind of where I'm coming from, is saying, we're given strength for a reason, so use that strength to help your family in how you can, and understand you can't fix it. There's only two people that can fix it: God and the doctors. That's it. And it's out of our hands, and that's a hard pill to swallow as a man.
Yeah. That's what that's what we're, I've said before that, number one, being a girl father is the most incredible thing on the world. I fucking love it. And I also have said too that my kids are my greatest achievement. I will never achieve anything greater than my kids, period. That is what I feel like that's what I'm here to do, is I have these beautiful children, watch them grow and push them and support them in what they do. And when you're faced with a situation like this where there's just nothing that you can do except sit back and watch, sit back and hope, sit back and pray that some miracle happens. And as fathers also on the outside watching all these other families in this community going through this, all these other families struggling, the new hospice children that are going on hospice, and what that means, that the children that are facing new diagnoses, the children that are having really rough times with new treatments, or the treatment options have run out. We're watching this, and whether your child is going through this, whether you've lost your child, you're watching this from the outside, and you're hurting just as much, because as a dad, you want to protect these kids. That's what we're here to do. And I know for me, and you'll have to tell me, how you feel, but I know for me and my relationship, I am the emotional one. I am the one that will break down. I am the one that will now hear songs, or there are smells, or there's triggers, and going through this that will break me. I can't listen to the beeping of the machines. I cannot do it. I can't smell cream corn anymore because of the stem cell transplant. I can't hear certain songs that we used to sit in the hospital and listen to all the time, but I'm the emotional one, and I'm okay with being emotional. And I feel like I want more dads, because I wasn't grown up like, or brought up like that, as in the 80s, to show your emotions and be, my dad was a tough guy and didn't show that kind of stuff until now. So are you one of those like me? Or are we hiding in the corner, not showing your emotions? And it's okay.
And for me, I don't. I keep saying, and I tell people all the time, I throw out, it depends, because it depends. There are, sometimes there are things that hit me in the feels and I lose it, but for the most part I grab it and shove it down, and then it becomes like this boil that just erupts to the surface occasionally. But for me, and I know, and I'm not throwing Amy under the bus, because it's not what this is, but she is the emotional one and she tries not to be. But for her, there are things that hit her and it just spirals her out of control. You know, like you said, the beeping of the monitors, the knowing what's going on, and she'll, like, all of a sudden she'll be watching a show on television and it will hit her, and it's like a light switch just blink, turns, and she's back in that hospital room where they're calling a code for our daughter, and she just does not deal well with that. And I don't blame her. I don't hold her at fault at all, because it's just what it is. But again, because I'm having to stay home, I'm never with her with all of that stuff. So she's dealing with all of the medical stuff basically by herself. And I'm not going to say it's by design, but that's just how it turned out. You know, it is what it is. So yeah, I'm not the emotional one. She is, but I can definitely understand. And you know what? One of the things that I keep talking to, that I've told people in the past, you know, it's like, if you lose a parent, it's okay to, or if you lose a loved one, it's okay to have all of the emotions, because that's normal. You're going to go through that entire gamut of, you're angry, you're upset, you're um, and then go through the sadness, and then you go back to the anger, and you're gonna have all of that, and that's normal. You know, it's just, it's human emotion is hard.
And there's no handbook. I'll tell you that there isn't a handbook on how you're supposed to go through the
No,
emotions or
no,
the stages of grief or anything like that. And I'll basically put it like this. I've been saying this my entire life, but there are a million different books on how to raise your kids. And I think at least a million of those books are written by people that don't actually have kids. So the books that are written on how you're supposed to grieve or how you're supposed to show emotions are people that don't understand the emotions they're telling you to feel. So how our bodies react to all of this and how we go through it is 100% different depending on who we are, depending on what we're facing. And there's no time limit, there's no time frame. But I will say this: don't let grief and don't let the emotions and don't let the things run your life. I don't know how to tell you to manage it, and I'm not going to tell anybody to manage it. Just don't let it run your life, and understand that there are people around that want to be there and want to help and want to, be your shoulder, be your ear, whatever. Just don't let it run your life. Understand that I think it's just kind of cliche, but the people that we lose wouldn't want you to be sad all the time because they're gone. They would want you to remember the good times, which we do. For us, I can tell you this, that we laugh more than we cry about losing Jace, and not because we're not sad, but because she was a goofy little kid and she made us laugh and she made us smile. And remembering all of those times, and still looking at my phone, and when she would take it and take selfies that I find every now and again, it's adorable and we love it. And to me, the very first thing I asked the next day after JC passed, I said, is it okay that we smile? Or, like, are we okay to laugh today? Is it okay for us to be happy? And, the answer was yes, because we were celebrating who she was, not being in all of those emotions. And we can be sad, but I think there's got to be there has to be a kind of a balance.
well, and just because you just said who she was, I'm going to go back and I'm going to say, because I haven't lost a child, but to me, with everything that you're doing, JC's not gone, because she is being carried on in the actions that you guys are doing. And as a result, her legacy is still alive. And that's, if that's and I guess if that has any solace, then so be it. But if not, then I'm sorry, but I'm also that's the other thing that people may not know is that cops are actually very, very sappy people. We're very sentimental, and we'll and if you start talking about things, if your kid gets adopted by a police agency, there that's just the way it's going to be. But so in that case, JC's legacy lives on through the actions that you guys are doing. So yeah, is she gone physically? Yes. However, like you said, all of the fingerprints that she has put on everything, you're going to see, and even in that silly, goofy pictures that she does. I have, on my phone, I have Sarah. That's a long time ago. But I go through my photo reel, and in between memes, I'll find like a picture of Sarah going, because she can. And I've
Yeah.
done that I found them on my work phone. I was like, what? How did that happen? I don't even know when she got my work phone, but she did. So I
Yeah.
mean, and I think that's the thing. You create, and just looking around the house, if Sarah was gone tomorrow, would we be devastated? Absolutely, and that's not going to change anything. But we're seeing all of the stuff all around us that she has been involved in and that she has touched and that she has influenced because of choices that she's made. You know, Battlecorn exists because of JC. And so as long as that's being carried on, then she's going to carry on, and
Yeah.
that's the same thing with Sarah's Warriors, and she started it because she wanted to give back. And I'll say this too, part of it is because of her getting a battle box from somebody.
Yeah.
So
So, um, I will say this. These, obviously we're both personally affected and we can both personally say this, but anybody in the world that's on the outside of this community, if you ever have the opportunity to talk to one of these kids, they will change your life. They will change your perspective on life. They will put your perspectives where they need to be, your priorities. They will put them in order because that's truly what is really happening here. This picture behind me is, us inpatient at the hospital, her kind of looking out, wanting to be out of there, wanting to be out and live her life and things like that. And everything we do today is to secure that legacy, to ensure that her name is in lights, that her life was not lived in vain, that her memory stays alive in every single thing that we do. And there's a lot of things going through this, and there's a lot of significance in the things that you receive and the things that you're a part of when your child is sick. And I'll say this, a lot of people come out and a lot of people want to support. Law enforcement is huge to support these kids and to be there for them. And this is not something to put ourselves on a pedestal, but we did something right not too long ago to ensure that what JC went through and what she received and and her legacy was there to be a part of Sarah's fight too, and something that is not handed out with carelessness and is something that is done by law enforcement, by agencies in not very selective manner. I'll put that way. And it's something that if you've ever seen, and I wish I had it with me right now, but if you ever seen challenge coins, correct? These things are incredible, and they're meant to be passed along in a way that really honors what they do, but also shows their support for what somebody's going through or an accomplishment or things like that. We were gifted two of those from law enforcement agencies here, given those to JC. They just showed, to be honest with you, they literally, the officer showed up at our door one day and passed it along. Not something that they even communicated with us. They just showed up one day and had these coins. The significance, one day I had a conversation with Trish about these coins and what they meant to us, but what they could also mean to somebody else that has such a close attachment to law enforcement in general and a dream of law enforcement. we passed those coins on to Sarah. And it wasn't something that we talked about. It was something that we did. We surprised. We didn't
Right.
tell anybody about it. And this isn't meant to, make us look good or anything like that. It was something that we did because it was the right thing. And it really felt really good to do that.
Right.
To know that they will be taken care of and understood the meaning and have that same power and impact that they had for us.
Right. Absolutely. And that's the thing. And he's absolutely right. It's a very, this entire experience has been has been huge, and just knowing what some of the things that we've done have been has been just absolutely mind-boggling. Just some of the things that we've seen. One of the things that I would challenge anybody that hears this and understand, we're fixing to, and basically in a month, we're going to be there's going to be an event that's happening in Washington, D.C. And it's an annual event. It's called Cure Fest. And this is when that picture was taken last year. And I would challenge anybody that listens to this, you know what? If you want to see the impact of pediatric cancer, my suggestion is you go to Washington, D.C. next month, and there is an event. It's the last day of Cure Fest after all of the events, and they place shoes on the Washington Monument lawn. And that is absolutely devastating. Shoes that kids will never be able to wear again because of pediatric cancer. And you see grown ass biker men that don't give two rips about anything, that are like buckled on their knees, bawling like babies at this site. And it's a gut-wrenching sight to see. And I challenge anybody to not see it, or to go to see it. And I can't tell you enough. It's awe-inspiring. This is I know Amy has said it. I've heard Curtis say it. This is a community that people are a part of that they don't want to be a part of. And to see that site on the Washington Monument is like, oh my God.
It will break anybody. And honestly, I think it's why, there's a lot of reasons, but I think it's truly why a lot of people that are in positions of power that can actually do anything about this and make a difference are the reason that they don't show up. Because to actually face this head on and to see the actual problem and the real issues would be real. It would be something that they would have to accept and understand. And to see that monument covered with shoes, and we lose 1,800 children every single year. Every year. 21, our daughter was one of them. And since that, we've had to put her shoes in that display. And you will see shoes as small as a baby, all the way up to teenagers. But these shoes will never take another step. And these kids will never become what they were meant to become. And facing that reality is something that is super hard for everybody in this country. And it's something that you have, but we don't have a choice. Much like when people say, oh, you're so strong, I don't know how you do it, you're so strong. No, we're not.
We don't have a choice.
Right. We were never given the option. We showed up because we had to, because our kids deserve us to fight for them. All of this community deserves us to fight for them, but we weren't asked. There wasn't any questionnaire that was passed around. They didn't come to the hospitals and say, hey, you want to fight cancer today? No. Okay. If you understand what it's like to be in that hospital and have a swarm of doctors come in, and you know damn well what's about to happen. You know what they're about to tell you. And then to come in and offer you all of these things, here's oncology, here's neurology, here comes in Make-A-Wish. And this is not a knock on Make-A-Wish, but up until then, if you're not involved in it, the stigma around it is, I'm going to lose my kid. And they're creating these memories for them. And this is real.
And honestly, I hate to say it. And again, I'm not knocking Make-A-Wish or any of the other foundations that are like that, because they do fantastic work. But I hate to say it, I don't know that I think it's Make-A-Wish, but it's providing, we say, well, it's providing memories, it's creating memories for that child. It's creating memories for the family of seeing their child genuinely happy for like one last time. And maybe I'm reading too much into it, But we had a Make-A-Wish for Sarah, and it's not a Make-A-Wish; it was through Wish with Wings, and we went to, and the number one place is Disney, either Disneyland or Disney World in Florida or California, and Sarah was like, I don't like that, and was like, well, where do you want to go? And she said, Yellowstone. So she chose to go to Yellowstone because that was her happy spot. And so it's like, you know what? Yeah, let's go to Yellowstone. So we did. And honestly, it was one of the best trips we've ever been to, because it was something that she wanted to do, and it had significance to her. Here's the other thing. And I didn't think of it until we were just talking about it. We were talking about it. One of the hardest parts is that you think, okay, well, I have a life, and I'm gonna life is gonna continue. Bullshit.